Hey, let's get into it today, and that is talking about CRO, the token. We're also going to break down some other exchange tokens to give you guys an insight as to maybe which one of these is the right horse to ride. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back to Tech Path. Let's get into it today, but before we get started, I want to jump over to our sponsor, which is one that I actually just discovered, and I love what they are doing, and that is a company called Ekkofy. They are a licensed and regulated DeFi platform. They are also the first and only DeFi platform that is backed and licensed by a regulated bank, which is very interesting and different than what we've seen in the past. Ekkofy has 4 core products. You'll have yield aggregators, lending, borrowing. You can also do a thing they call interest rate swaps, which I think is kind of interesting in how you can do it to maximize what interest you're paying and when you want to pay it. So if you want to have variable versus non-variable. Also, their EQX is the native token for Ekkofy. It's a utility token and enhances the results you can get from Ekkofy, including higher limits, better rates, better LTV ratios, etc. The cool thing about the yield aggregator is it's currently producing yields of up to 70% APY, big one. And then it's also, Ekkofy has also grown its users over 680% just in November. That's a pretty amazing growth number as well. Users can also borrow at a rate of 1%, which is insane, I think, when you look at borrowing, because we've seen projects like Celsius, Voyager, all these different projects that are trying to go into lending, obviously Celsius, Nexo being the big ones there. But this right here at 1% is really cool in the sense that they've got banking regulatory elements in it, all those kind of things that really kind of pull together. Another thing they're doing is you can be eligible for a global secured MasterCard, including virtual card, which is, I think, a new thing that we're seeing across the industry, both for online transactions anywhere, and MasterCard is accepted. The cool thing about this is that they have partnered with numerous metaverses and will be the bank of the metaverse. If they are the bank of the metaverse, that alone is a good reason to go take a look at what they're doing over at Ekkofy. I have been currently looking for places to earn on my crypto. Ekkofy makes it really simple, and we've done videos on this across all kinds of scenarios of where to earn the best yields. This is another good option for you guys to take a look at. Their aggregator, check it out for sure, and also they'll make it easier and more seamless to bring DeFi into the metaverse. I think that is probably going to be the killer app when you can see, earn, and then directly deposit into your Ekkofy account from the metaverse. If they get that all done, this is a winner. Make sure and check the link below for more details on Ekkofy and get a chance to open your own account. All right, so let's get into Crypto.com. As you can see, fortune favors the bold or the brave in this particular case with Matt Damon. And I think when they signed Matt Damon on, some things happened for Crypto.com. They, of course, have been playing into a lot of licensing and sponsorships and things of that nature. Crypto.com, obviously their native token being CRO, and that's what we're talking about today. But I like what they are doing overall in terms of the marketing. I think that's a big part of it. But they also have this whole long-term value on their exchange. This was a story that was done by Investor Place. I want to just kind of pull over to it. As more people have been trading cryptocurrencies, they, of course, are migrating to new exchanges like Crypto.com, which is a mobile only, just so you guys know, in case you've never used it. As a result, they are being the CRO token has started to really start to fly. Here's an interesting thing. It reached a peak of 95 cents on November 24th. It's drifted down a little bit since then, but it has also looked at some adjustments throughout. Now, we're going to show a chart here of some of the bigger tokens, primarily crypto, but I also want to take a look at VGX, Voyager's token. We'll also take a look at FTT, FTX's token. And then we have an alignment on sentiment data on each one of these. And the reason that I am bullish on CRO, and there is a big part of this. I want to go back here to the chart just in December. So this is our TradingView chart for December. Back here on December 20th, we pulled sentiment on CRO. This was holding in at 75.06. It had an amplification score of 76.17, as you guys know if you followed our channel. Once then an AMP score overperforms a sentiment score, it usually indicates upward movement because we're seeing activity in sentiment data and amplification What that simply means, more people are talking about, more key people are talking about it and talking about actually doing something with these projects. When that happens, you'll see fairly fast growth. And that's exactly what you have right here, where we went from, let's take a look and see what the percentage of increase that was from the 20th to that high right there. So you had a nice 43% raise, and this occurred right on Christmas Day, December 25th. Merry Christmas. We saw a little bit of the adjustment right here. And of course, as you're following our indices, being the sentiment and amplification data, we started to pull down. Now, we missed the window right here. When I say missed, meaning we showed a good ascension for the token. We did not see it pumping out that high. We saw its high coming in at around 65 cents, where it actually topped at almost 69 cents. But we did show this a movement sideways, and then that's pretty much where we had pulled back on our data when we reported this back over here on December 20th. Where we are right now is interesting, because now we are taking a look at the current time frame, and date pulled of this sentiment is right here on December 30th. We've got a sentiment of 79.66 and an amplification of 73.11. Now, AMP is now performing under, but that usually means sideways action for a little bit. Right now, the way this is leaning, we could see a little bit of a breakout right here around January 3rd, even though we do have a little bit of a dip potentially right there, which is also in that January 3rd position. I'm just looking at this area right here that could really give us a little bit more of a breakout. But again, this is around 62 to 63 cents. Our high is still holding at around 66, still not at the high that we saw back here in late December. So the good point is if you are looking at CRO right now, you're buying it at 56 cents. There is a potential move here, but the bigger picture is what is the long term on exchanges. And I think as we start to see exchanges really grow and expand, it is a race right now for both Crypto.com, FTX, and then also to a certain extent Voyager, and then you have Binance. So I would say that those are kind of the big players outside of Coinbase, of course. But when you have these kinds of token movements that are happening and the opportunity, then CRO makes it for some very interesting things. Now, advantage with Crypto.com, I want to jump over to their Earn product. And when you get into the product for Earn, let's jump over here. One of the reasons that I think this is cool is if you are staking or adding additional tokens into this. If I want to stake my CRO, if I've purchased it, and let's just say I've got a $5,000 deposit and I want to go under, I don't want to stake it, but I just want to see what my earnings are. Right now, I can also get earnings of up to 6%. If I were to go in and say, all right, I want to stake if I'm going in a little higher, and I say I just want to go flexible, you'll see it does drop a little bit there, but it does give you some flexibility of being able to move around on that. That is one of the few things that Crypto.com does, which I think is building on to what's happening with CRO. All right, so I'm going to jump over to a slide now just to show you guys some data on these, so you can kind of see where we are. So this is our CPI score on these 4 exchanges, and Crypto.com being the first light blue bar there. You see at 79.66 on sentiment data, amplification data at 73.11, just what you just saw on the chart. And then you've got FTX coming in at 76.66, interesting, and then 73.08 on their amplification. Voyager at 70.19, and then amplification quite a bit lower on 65.37, and then Binance 78.04 right there at number 2, and then 76.51. Binance actually holding the number 2 position in terms of sentiment and amplification scores. This is across about a 3.1 million crypto investors that are utilizing these platforms in terms of their sentiment analysis on what these people are talking about. When it comes to the tokens, now, not necessarily we pull information on how people like the exchanges. That's a completely different kind of data query. But the tokens themselves, definitely moving in the right direction. One thing to consider is as we look at whether or not any of these tokens, whether it's Voyager, Binance, if you look at FTX and the FTT token, and also the CRO token for Crypto.com, the good point is that most of them are in pretty good shape right now. I want to jump over to the charts real quick, and we'll take a look at Crypto.com right here. So we've got our year-to-date on Crypto.com, and I think this is the thing that everybody's talking about, is this massive growth that we've seen. It appears to have stabilized to a certain extent, even though we did see this low right here at 49 cents, and then another little jump back up here in late December to 65 cents, and then an adjustment. So this is pretty typical. This is one of those right now that I would probably put on a potential buy and then start to dollar cost average with CRO. If you compare that to what's happening over here on FTX, a little bit different track record. Obviously them coming from earlier in the year, seeing a nice high around May, which was of course when we saw the fall off on crypto. And again, these will go the way of how the market goes. If we do see a bear market start to form in mid next year, then the likelihood is these tokens will follow suit. So between FTX or FTT and what's happening with CRO, I think I would probably push toward CRO right now. However, FTX and FTT, I own FTT. It's one of those that I like in the position that it's in right now, because it, again, to go back to the chart, it had this high back here in September at $80, and now we're trading right at $38. So this is, in my opinion, is a good buy right now, and anytime we see it near this bottom, which is around 25 bucks. So that's a good point for FTT and whether or not that's going. Now, the one that is interesting is Voyager, because that one has had a trajectory that, as you can see on the year-to-date, after its initial pump, which was back in March and February, we saw pretty much a decline. We had a little bit of a spike with some of their marketing, and then just a continued decline, and then the same thing here, a little bit of spike and a continued decline. So the point is that the highs are becoming lower highs, and that is a concerning thing to me if I was investing or looking at Voyager. Now, Voyager's, and I don't want to say anything bad about it, but because I use Voyager, but I just don't use the token any longer to get gains on it. I really just use the percentage that they're paying on certain tokens, and I just take that percentage. Voyager token, there's some loyalty aspects to it, but it shows trending down. It's definitely not holding on with what is happening with FTX and with CRO. When I go from Voyager over to take a look at Binance, this is another one that has some interesting elements to it. Again, nice growth, big pop there in May, and then it's pretty much been going uphill from here. So again, probably why we're seeing Binance right now and the number 2 position. This is the interesting thing between Binance and Crypto.com, and they kind of be fighting it out. I think FTX has a potential to make a run if they can get in the game in terms of adding some rewards, doing some additional benefits to users that would generate and stimulate those tokens. But Binance still has this massive exposure or opportunity within their ecosystem, just in how they're growing, and just the Binance Smart Chain, Binance Labs, all that kind of stuff. The problem is the challenge that it is for US customers to really get access to it, because what they use in Binance US is not that better than, say, Crypto.com. In fact, Crypto.com has more tokens that are accessible, and it feels like it just has a little bit better use case, or I should say user interface. The scenario with Binance is it's a little bit more complicated for most people, so I think a lot of early people may not necessarily go that route. This is how it's playing out. The question would be whether or not all these exchanges can hold from a user case scenario in terms of sentiment. That's one thing I definitely want to take a look at, because the tokens themselves, what we looked back here on our chart, this right here is just the token sentiment. So it has nothing to do with the exchanges themselves. I will pull, matter of fact, drop in the comments below if you want me to pull the data on the exchanges themselves to see which exchange are seeing the best sentiment in terms of trade performance, people liking how it's working, things like that, where they're not talking about their token or the native tokens that run on the exchanges themselves. I'd love to find out if you guys have interest in that. If you guys are listening in over on the podcast, we'll do these kinds of projects like this. Again, these are not investment advice. We do market movers like this. It's pretty simple. We'll pull together our sentiment data, our amplification data, give you some research, hopefully get you on the right direction of where you want to go with your own investment strategies, but not financial advice. If you're over on the podcast, make sure and tune in, of course, right here on the YouTube channel where you can gain access to our charts, our interviews, all that good stuff, as well as the Diamond Circle. If you want to hit me up, it's out on Twitter, @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.